Thank you for joining us this afternoon. This is the November 7th meeting of the Yakima School District Board of Directors. I want to alert you that we are recording this meeting for future playback on our YouTube channel. You can access the YouTube channel from the district's website or just by going to YouTube and typing in Yakima School District. And that will be posted probably by the middle of next week. And we are also live streaming this. So if you know, we live stream all of our meetings. If you know someone who's interested in watching remotely, they can certainly join us via live stream. And the instructions for that are on the district's website under the Board of Directors page. So I'm calling this meeting to order. Graciela is not in yet. When she comes in, would you alert me? And would you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett.
Present.
Director Walker.
Here.
Director Navarro Jr.
Present.
President Rice.
Here.
And we'll call attention when Vice President Villanueva logs in.
Okay, thank you, Barb. We are indeed fortunate to have a special guest this afternoon who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. This is a student from Barge Lincoln. And her teacher, I think, is here. Would you be willing to introduce your student, please? You come to and make sure that that's on.
This is Jaylene Flores, a fifth grader at Barge Lincoln Elementary.
And you are?
What is screen? Sorry. I'm Michelle Deardorff, the assistant principal at Barge Lincoln.
Thank you. Hi, Jaylene, right?
Yes,
That's a lovely name.
thank you.
Whenever you're ready, Mrs. Fiscus will post the flag on the screen, and then you can just tell us when you're ready, and you can just begin, okay?
Okay. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now in Spanish. Ready? Begin. Yo prometo a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Thank you, Jaylene. Now, do you know the word of the month?
Yes,
Could you tell us what it is?
November's character word, fortitude, strength of mind that enables a person to encounter danger or bear pain or adversity with courage. Firme, fuerza de la mente que permita a una persona enfrentarse al peligro o soportar el dolor o la adversidad que valentía.
Thank you very much. You did a great job with that. Now I'm going to ask if the board members have anything that they'd like to ask you. Usually they have questions, but they aren't hard. So, and there won't be a test. So Raymond, do you have anything?
Excuse me. Yes, I just want to say thank you for being here. And it's awesome that you're bilingual English and Spanish. Your Spanish is really good. A lot better than mine. So congratulations. That's awesome. Just have one question. What is your favorite subject in school?
My favorite subject is probably science.
Science? Do you have like a career or dream about a career in science?
Not really.
Okay. Good job. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Norm?
Thank you again, Jaylene, for your participation today. And again, your Spanish is excellent. What's your favorite thing about being at Barge Lincoln?
My favorite thing is probably the playgrounds.
The playground?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
The new playground,
New,
huh?
yeah, you have a brand new one, huh?
Mhm.
Yeah. My very first teaching job was at Barge Lincoln many, many years ago in the 1970s. So, and we didn't have that nice a playground then. So I'm very happy to see that. I've been to see your school. So I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Thank you, Norm. Ryan?
I don't have any questions, so you're off the hook. But I do want to say thank you very much for being here tonight. We really appreciate it, and we really hope you have an awesome rest of your school year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And Graciela is joining us remotely. So Graciela, do you have anything you'd like to share with our student?
Hi, Jaylene. My name is Graciela. Thank you so much for being here. You did a great job on the Pledge of Allegiance, and I saw your new playground a couple of months ago, and it's very nice. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. Thank you so much, and again, you did a very good job. And your Spanish is very good and also better than mine. Good job.
Jaylene, thank you so much for being with us. You want to introduce your mom to us?
Yeah.
And what's her name? Do you know?
Yesenia Rodriguez.
Thank you for bringing her down today. Sure.
Jaylene, I have a question for you. I'm Superintendent Green, and I think we spoke earlier. What's your superpower?
You said it was Spanish.
That's right. You're bilingual, right?
Yes.
Being able to speak 2 languages. Great job. Thank you.
Having a superpower is pretty special, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, good for you. Well, thank you for being here today. I understand if you have to leave that there may be other things that are kind of calling your name saying, come pay attention to me, like homework or something. So if you need to leave, we completely understand. But thank you for joining us. And you did a great job today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jaylene. We have the Yakima land acknowledgement, and Raymond Navarro is going to read that for us today.
If I can speak without coughing. Excuse me. Today, the schools of the Yakima School District rest on the ancestral lands of the 14 Confederate tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation. The people of the Yakima Nation inhabited more than 12 million acres across Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Franklin, Grant, Kittitas, Klickitat, and Yakima counties. Today, we honor those Native peoples who are tied to the land through history, legends, and culture. We acknowledge their descendants who live in the world today. We thank the caretakers of this land who have lived here and continue to live here since time immemorial. An acknowledgement is a simple, powerful way to show respect and a step towards correcting the stories and practices that erase Indigenous peoples' history and culture. It also honors the truth. As a school district, we will continue to build upon our relations with the Yakima Nation.
Thank you, Raymond. I would like to ask that you help me do a recognition of a former employee who unfortunately passed away in the last few days, Pam Herbst. She was born on February 10th, 1956, and passed away on October 31st of this year. Pam grew up in Yakima, Washington, and was the oldest of 4 girls in her family. She graduated from Eisenhower High School and went on to meet the love of her life, Greg Herbst, while working at the country store. At the age of 18, they got married and later had 3 children. They were married for 48 years. Pam worked as a paraeducator at Franklin Middle School for 30 years until she retired in 2021. She always had a smile on her face and was always ready for any task thrown her way, and was always a champion of the students she interacted with. Pam walked the walk of her strong faith and faith in education. Pam loved playing cards with her friends, spending time at the beach, and enjoying time with family. She did not like the cold, but she loved decorating her house with snowmen for the winter. Pam is preceded in death by her parents and is survived by her husband, 3 children, 7 grandchildren, 3 sisters, and nieces and nephews. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Then we have two proclamations. The first one is the American Educator Week proclamation, and I've asked Ryan Beckett if he could read that proclamation for us, please.
American Education Week. Whereas public education is the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas public education employees, be they educators, substitute educators, higher education faculty and staff, custodians, teachers, paraeducators, bus drivers, clerical workers, food service professionals, skilled trades workers, health and student service workers, security guards, technical employees, or librarians, work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas public schools are the foundations of neighborhoods and communities, bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders and elected officials in a common purpose. And now, therefore, the Board of Directors of the Yakima School District do hereby proclaim the week of November 13th through 19th as the annual observance of American Education Week. We urge all families and community members to join us in recognizing those who contribute to the future of our youth through the American education system.
Thank you, Ryan. We are also celebrating this month Native American Heritage Month and Day. And we have a proclamation from the governor, and I've asked Graciela Villanueva to read that proclamation for us.
The State of Washington Proclamation. Whereas Native Americans have inhabited the area now known as Washington State since time immemorial, and today 29 federally recognized Indian tribes, out-of-state tribes with treaty reserve rights, and other tribal communities reside in Washington. And whereas members and descendants of tribes around the United States and First Nations of Canada also reside in the state of Washington. And whereas Native American contributions and values have shaped the social, political, environmental, and economic fabric of the state, while also enhancing freedom, prosperity, and cultural diversity. And whereas state law RCW 43.376 directs the governor and state agencies to establish government-to-government relationships with the Indian tribes in order to enhance and formalize working relationships with the tribes through collaboration and consultation. And whereas state law RCW 28A.320.170 mandates the teaching of tribal history, culture, and government in common schools, which will contribute greatly to improving schools' history curriculum and enhance awareness for a better cultural understanding. And whereas substitute House Bill 1356 prohibiting the inappropriate use of Native American names, symbols, or images as public school mascots, logos, or teammate names was signed into law on April 26, 2021, thus removing harmful stereotypes and barriers to racial equality, cultural awareness, and equitable education. And whereas the state of Washington has designated the Friday immediately following the fourth Thursday in November as a state legal and school holiday known as Native American Heritage Day. And whereas Washington joins other states across the nation in celebrating Native American Heritage Month, honoring the unique heritage of this continent's first people and reaffirming the commitment to respect each tribe's sovereignty and cultural identity. Now, therefore, I, Jay Inslee, Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby proclaim November 2022 as Native American Heritage Month and November 25, 2022 as Native American Heritage Day in Washington and encourage all people in our state to join me in this special observance. Signed this 10th day of October 2022, Governor Jay Inslee.
Thank you, Graciela. Dr. Green, do you have some gifts to the district that you'd like to share with us?
Yes, President Rice, there are two items that I'd like to share with the board. We had a printer, scanner, copier donated to Gilbert Elementary from Health Catalyst. The maintenance thereof will be the responsibility of Gilbert Elementary, and we're very grateful to Health Catalyst for that donation. In addition, $1,000 was donated to Davis High School DECA program to assist with expenses for student meals at conferences throughout the school year from Washington DECA. So we're grateful for that as well. Those two donations have been logged and simply sharing that information with you this day.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Next item on the agenda are board reports.
We actually have a global ends.
We have, what?
Before that in, I think it's section B, before the
Yes.
reports.
Yeah, policy 1000.1.0, global ends statement. Do you want to lead into this or just?
Absolutely. Just as is common practice in our district, every November we do have an ends report that is brought forth, led by our teaching and learning department. Of course, we are a teaching and learning organization, and it's this year, I'm very pleased with the refinements that we've made in sharing this with the board. You'll notice the time and effort that Dr. Rodriguez has put into preparing and presenting this PowerPoint. Actually includes and is comprised of around the strategic plan and meeting our goals towards improvement in 2026. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to present Dr. Rodriguez for the ends report.
And just so the community is aware, this particular PowerPoint is located on Board Docs, which is you can reach through the district's website, but it's also available in Spanish on
Correct.
Board Docs. So thank you for translating that.
Thank you to Kirsten Fitterer and our communications access, language access department. She just renamed it. So we're making sure that they're always translated. So I appreciate her team's work on that. Thank you, Board President Rice, honor members of the board, superintendent team members. I'm excited to be with you to present our teaching and learning ends report. So we'll start with the policy. It is a fairly straightforward policy statement, but important for us to take a look at before we jump into the data that I'm going to share with you tonight. The YSD strategic plan outlines our 5 aspirational goals for our students. Those are very familiar to you. These goals clarify our promise to every student and our commitment to supporting every student to achieve those aspirational outcomes. Our community commitments are the achievable stretch targets we will meet by 2026 relative to each of the 5 goals. So we do have other pieces of our strategic plan, but the ends policy is really tied to those 5 goals and to those stretch targets. So we're going to focus on those this evening. Goal number 1 is really around developing a strong foundation. We have our goal number 1 statement on the slide. Power outage. Okay.
Pending power outage.
Pending power outage. Okay. And we have some fun pictures here of our littlest learners. My favorite is the little smile you can see she's like this when Dr. Ellis is, they were teaching Dr. Ellis, let's be honest. So we had a great day at early learning. When we take a look at the commitments that are tied to goal number 1, our commitment to our community is that 95% of our students entering kindergarten will enter ready. And that is an ambitious goal, given that we don't necessarily serve very many of our students before they arrive to us in kindergarten. So this has been a concerted effort on our part to reach out to community partners. And you heard a couple of weeks ago from Dr. Green talk about our trip to California to focus on early learning. And that was an intentional investment of our time to really set up those community teams to be able to do this work together. At the time of the creation of the strategic plan, we were at 20%. 4 out of every 20 students were entering basically ready for kindergarten. This year, this fall, we assess students using our WA Kids assessment, which has been in place for some time. And in particular, now we ensure that students are assessed in their home language. So we provide this assessment in English, in Spanish, or for some students in both languages. And based on those scores, you can see here the percentage of our entering kindergartners that were ready for kinder or considered on grade level at entrance. There are 6 separate domains. Cognitive, we were at 43%, language 45%, literacy 42%. So pretty consistent around that language and literacy domain. Math is a little bit lower at 35%. Physical, so we think a lot with kinders about gross motor skills, and we are at 65% as our strongest area, and social emotional learning actually was our second highest area at 54%. Goal number 2 is focused on students being empowered, connected, supported, resilient, and engaged, and you have the goal statement there as well. This often fits into when we think about our social, emotional, and behavioral learning that happens, and a lot of things that our students have an opportunity to participate in, from athletics to music to after-school programs to mentoring programs. The picture on the right is, I think, a lesson from our Playworks, which is a model that some of our elementaries are piloting right now, where paras are intentionally teaching a game and then practicing with students so they can practice those collaborative skills by design. We have 2 commitments that are tied to goal number 2. The first is around attendance, that 95% of students will attend 95% of the time. That translates into not missing more than 9 school days out of our 180-day school year. At the time of the strategic plan development in 2019, we were at 50%, so 10 out of every 20 students. As we're coming back from pandemic, this has been a real challenge. And again, we have been reaching out and doing significant work with community organizations and members around this goal. Recently, Shelby Lockhart, who oversees attendance out of our teaching and learning department, was able to present at a national conference around the partnership that we have in the Yakima community on this focus. Right now, this is data based on all of last school year. So our benchmark that I'm reporting out to you today, 5 out of every 20 students, or 22.5% is the actual percentage, met that criteria for all of last school year. So you can see that's a significant drop from where we started. If we take a look at 90% attendance, so that would be not missing more than 18 days in the school year, or basically 2 days per month, we had 9 out of every 20, or 45.9% is the actual percentage. So at a 90% mark, we're at about where we were at a 95% mark pre-pandemic. So it is coming back up, but it has been a tough road. The other commitment tied to goal number 2 is around students agreeing or strongly agreeing to survey questions. I feel safe at school and I feel connected to other students and adults at school. We utilize the Center for Educational Effectiveness, their EES survey, and our baseline was 80%, met the initial criteria around feeling safe. We didn't have baseline data for connected. I believe that was the new survey items that were added at that time. So this is, again, data from last spring. So we're giving you the most recent, and we are currently taking the survey right now for this school year. So we'll have that data for you in the next couple of months as we get that all compiled. There are 3 separate specific survey items. So I've listed each of those for you and broke the data out by level. It's often interesting to just see, is there similarities or differences between elementary, middle, and high school? So really our strongest one there, you can see I feel connected to at least one adult who knows and cares about me. We're almost to the goal of 85%. We're at 75% at elementary and at middle. It does take a dip at high school, which is fairly common when we look historically at this data. Most students are respectful of others in this school, however, is significantly lower. So it's just interesting as we're having these conversations that students feel adults care about them, are respectful of them and know them, but that students aren't necessarily respectful of each other. The safety one is also an interesting one to take a look at. We have 42% of our elementary students that agreed with that, 62 at middle school and 65% at high school. So it was actually higher at secondary, which is a little bit unusual. One of the components of this is that the CEE survey has a 3-point Likert scale. So it just asks students, do you agree? Are you neutral or do you disagree? Where at the middle and high school, it's a 5-point scale where it's strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. So when I look at that safety one, I would hypothesize that many students said I'm neutral. And so then they don't count, and that would cause a dip in that score. Goal number 3 is around equitable opportunity to achieve core mastery and critical thinking. We often think of this as the core academic goal, but of course this means core mastery in any area. And so you can see some additional areas of learning that are represented in these photos. As you know, Yakima was selected as the District of Excellence from Imagine Learning last school year. We have incredibly talented artists in our district, musicians, and so I wanted to showcase that photo. And on the right, you can see some of our elementary students participating in their live wax museum social studies project day. The commitments in this one are tied to state assessments. So the commitment that was made in the strategic plan is that 75% of students would be on grade level in grades 4, 7, and 10 for English language and arts and mathematics, and in grades 5, 8, and 11 in science. And that's based on when those assessments are required to be administered from our state. At the time of the creation of the document, we were at 35% as an average across all of those areas. In an effort to be really transparent about how we're doing, I've broken it out for you by 4th, 7th, and 10th grade in English language arts and math, and then in 5th, 8th, and 11th grade in science. These charts actually represent 5 years, the last 5 years of data. Right down the middle of each of those tables is the 1920 school year when we shut down and those assessments were not administered due to the COVID pandemic. So it is a rather stark contrast to take a look at. For example, if we look at English language arts at 4th grade, we were in that low 40%, and then the pandemic hit and we dropped significantly to 23.5%. We're inching back up. So last spring, just inching up to 25.3. You can see the same thing when you look at 7th grade. It was fairly stable and then a significant drop, and now it's starting to come back up. And the same when we look at 10th grade. Promising is when you look at that sophomore level, we're almost up to pre-pandemic levels in English language arts. Mathematics, we are not yet, but we were quite low to begin with at the secondary level in particular. And then you can see the science scores, which I know Dr. Webb spoke about when she made the STEAM presentation. Goal number 4, bilingual, biliterate by graduation. And these are some fun pictures from our dual language classrooms. I'd point out to you, you'll see the lanyards that the students are wearing in the picture on the left. They have orange lanyards on. That designates that it is currently time to speak Spanish. So everyone in the room is only speaking Spanish when everyone has their orange lanyards on. And on the right-hand side, they've got the purple, which designates that they're currently speaking English in the classroom. So it's another visual cue that the staff uses to alert the students to which language they're using at that time. We have 3 separate commitments. These were reported on earlier this fall by Tally Garcia, our Director of Multilingual Education. So I've just recaptured them here for you. Again, our current benchmark for elementary is around having dual language access. We already have 8 out of 14 at 57%. We will add 2 additional elementary schools next year. So we are on pace to hit that target earlier than is designated in the commitment. So it's definitely a cause for celebration for our whole district. The middle level is a focus around participation in world language courses or cultural exchange programs. We're still having dialogue about what does that mean to have a cultural exchange program at the middle school level. So right now we're really focused on participation in world language courses and earning those high school credits prior to high school entrance. And the 2026 commitment for our high school students, of course, is to attain that seal of biliteracy. In 2019, we were at 15%, and last spring we had come up from that. We were at 21% of students meeting criteria. So it is nice to see on that goal, we actually have made gains even with the pandemic. And then our fifth and final goal, persistence through graduation and beyond. You have a couple of our fun graduation pictures there. And our commitment is that 95% of students graduate on time, with 100% graduating within 6 years. Our baseline data was 80%, and 80% of the remaining students graduating within 6 years. So to take a look at our current benchmark, I looked at last spring's class of 2022. We were at 78.9%. So we're basically about right where we were pre-pandemic. And then you can see to get to that 6-year mark, we actually have to go back to classes. So you can see class of 2021, there's their rate at 4 years and at 5 years. And their 5-year rate for class of 2021 actually surpassed the 6-year rate for 2020. So that is also a positive sign. And then you can see that class of 2020 data that gives us all the way to the 6-year mark. So if I was sitting on the board, I would say, that's all great, Dr. Rodriguez. What are you going to do about it? Because that is not sufficient. So as you know, we spent a significant amount of time last year developing our theory of action and figuring out what is it going to take and what are we going to be intensively focused on to make traction and gains on all of those areas. And we identified 3 key strategies: PLCs, or professional learning communities, induction, mentoring, and coaching, and principal supervision. And our theory of action is really that we are focused on, as a central services or district office, on supporting our principals to be learners, which then impact our teachers as learners, which then changes classroom practice, which ultimately is what impacts student learning. This graphic should look familiar. We bring it to you every time from the teaching and learning department. We want to make sure it is top of mind for you as you're thinking about our work. And then what I thought would be helpful was to crosswalk for you how our 5 goals are tied into those 3 key strategies. There's a lot of text on this. You do have, again, a copy of the slides that are built into Board Docs, so you can dig through it at your leisure. I just wanted to give a couple of highlights from these. The big one with PLCs is that we have dedicated PLT, or professional learning team time, weekly for grade level teams. At the early years, that's for those preschool, kinder, first, second, third grade teams. When we're thinking about empowered and engaged, it is also looking at that social emotional behavioral data, thinking about discipline data. We're doing some more focusing on exclusionary discipline, which I know Director Navarro has been interested in exploring further. And really, those PLTs are highly focused on the 4 key questions, which is: what should students learn? How do we know when they've learned it? What do we do when they haven't? What do we do when they have? And so this PLCs piece really has an impact on all 5 of these goal areas. Strategy 2, induction, mentoring, and coaching. We do have, as you know, we've scaled up our induction, mentoring, and coaching team. So we have 4 district teachers on special assignment, or TOSAs, who are committed to supporting particularly our first-year teachers in Yakima, but also those who are in their 2nd and 3rd year. Just like our students, they have had a very interesting first few years as teachers. So we're really making sure that those foundational supports are in place for them. We had over 100 new teachers in Yakima School District this year. 2/3 of them are brand new to the profession, so they are receiving the most assistance. And then we continue to provide supports for year 2 and year 3. We also have 2 TOSAs who serve specifically for dual language. We have TOSAs who support assessment and understanding your data and how to use it. And we also have TOSAs who support career and technical education teachers. There's also a number of on-demand training that's available for a variety of different staff categories within our district. We've done quite a scale up around asynchronous training and what's available not just for teachers, but for principals, for paraeducators. The other piece that is really a coaching model is how we are supporting our principals. And we have scaled up our principal supervisory team as well to really push on that coaching of our principals. And the final strategy, which is the one I was just referencing, was principal supervision. So as you know, we have dedicated principal supervisors for each of our principals, starting with preschool all the way up to our high schools. And they are focused on supporting principals with individualized learning plans. Some of those are focused on behavior, some are focused on academics. There is a number of data pieces that we now have, a consistent data system in our district with 3 times a year screeners for reading, for mathematics, and for social emotional behavior. So we now have data available in a way that we didn't previously that really can support those coaching conversations with our principals and with our teachers. And with that, I'd be happy to answer questions. And I know we would love to know any feedback. This is a different format for the ENDS report. So if you have feedback on that, happy to hear that as well.
Any questions or comments from board members?
Arth, I have a few.
Go ahead.
So thank you for Dr. Rodriguez for all the time and effort you and your staff put into putting this presentation together. I do have a few questions as we went through the presentation. In each of the data points that you shared on each goal, do you also look at the different student groupings that I know we've seen the data through that lens where we look at outcomes based on ethnicity, based on student type, students with special needs and other groups. Is that part of what your review is? And that's the data that I've certainly enjoyed seeing as well, seeing it through that lens of those additional demographic pieces. So I assume you do that, but if you could confirm that and how you use that information, how that informs the planning pieces as you move forward, and then if you could share that with me, I imagine that the board members may have interest as well, maybe through an email link or something like that.
Sure. Thank you, Director Villanueva. We do take a look at the disaggregated data. Thank you, Barb. And where you would see that more is when you take a look at our school improvement plan. So we do take a look at that at the district level, but more importantly, we're breaking that out by buildings and looking at that data. And that's something that their instructional leadership teams, their building leadership teams take a look at as they are developing those school improvement goals and then identifying what the strategies are to learn and then make change within their building to address those. So you'll see coming up, I think in early December, all of the school improvement plans again for this year. And we took a look at last year's in the summer, as you'll recall. But that would be a good place where you can see some of that data as well. Happy to break it out next time too, if that's something the board would like.
I'd certainly be interested in that, and the graduation data by school is helpful to see as well. And then my last question is, does this data include the district's online program? I think it's called SOL. Those are students, as I understand, not living within Yakima school district boundaries, but participating in the online program. Is that student data included in these outcomes?
No, there isn't testing data. I do not think we provide the state testing for SOL students. They can be coming really from anywhere. It does, however, include our online programs with Yakima Online and our K-8 virtual students as well.
Okay, and so that the data would represent truly just those students who are living within Yakima School District boundaries?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions, Graciela?
No other questions at this time. Thank you, Martha.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from board members? Raymond?
Just a comment. It's a different format, something different than I'm used to seeing, and I'm kind of agreeing with Graciela in terms of data or missing data that I'm used to seeing, the disaggregated data, and then also comparisons to the state scores as well, just to get it gives me a picture of what's going on and how to evaluate how we're doing. If it's just the school district scores, then I have no way of comparing or assessing that. And so that's kind of something I'm struggling with as well. So it is, again, I'm just trying to soak this in and just kind of make sense of the report, because it does look a little different, something that I'm used to. And again, there's some data that I'd like to see as well included in this report, so I can make some comparisons. But those are my thoughts for now.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Ryan?
Yes, I just have one clarification, Dr. Rodriguez. I think maybe I caught this. Do the state's graduation requirements now mirror what the graduation requirements were prior to COVID, as far as before the proclamation?
Yeah, we are in the core 24 time. There were many districts that had waivers for 1 or 2 years before having to implement those core 24, but it has been in place for that length of time.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. This has a lot of information in it, and it's going to take us a while, I think, to digest all of it. I appreciate the fact that you've made it succinct, and it's not something that will require, 4 hours of a board meeting to discuss. Having said that, I think that there's probably some middle road between succinct and what used to be a 4 to 8 hour board meeting to discuss all of it. So I think what you're hearing from board members is that they want some of it broken out. They would like to see comparisons to the state level. And I think that was the crux of it. So maybe we could see that maybe in January, when you come back with the rest of the data that is not incorporated in here, CEE stuff and things like that. Okay, thank you, Jenny. Go
I
ahead.
do have just some thoughts. I know we saw that there was a dip in the scores, right, or in the data in 2020, 21. So, I'm just, and then we're 21, 22. So I guess I'm just trying to understand. I do understand, but I guess I didn't hear the direct impact of the pandemic on the data here. So was there a significant increase in certain areas that kept, in discipline, or, I guess I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself, but what were the reasons for science? Why did the science in 5th grade dip even more after the pandemic? And what are those things that are still lingering, in 2021, 22 that are still impacting the scores? I'm just trying to get the more of the I don't know, qualitative data, or just kind of the reasons maybe for the dips or the changes in the scores. So that'll give me a better, complete picture of how we're doing, how to compare, are we making significant increases or improvement in the district when it comes to the scores. So I guess I just need, I don't know if that's possible to get that explanation as well. I'm not sure. So it just would help me again to better or to better understand the trends in our data. So
Thank you, Raymond.
sure.
Dr. Green, do you have anything to add before we move on?
I may have some clarifying information during my superintendent update
Okay.
for Director Navarro. So I think after that update, if he's still of the same opinion, it would be good to know. So maybe the stars aligned in some of the information that I'm sharing tonight. So I will be providing some of that detail.
All right. Okay, I think that's probably it, unless you have something to add. Thank you, Jenny. Okay, next we have items of board interest. The first being any reports from members of the board. I understand we had some school visits today. I did. The nudge that moved him 3 feet over.
Well, yeah, I had the pleasure of visiting Robertson Elementary and Nob Hill Elementary this morning and early afternoon. And what a pleasure it is to get out and be back in schools again after COVID and see kids hard at work and teachers hard at work, and climate looks really good and the schools look good. And so it's just a nice feeling to see what people are doing. It's also interesting that you could go from one classroom to another, and in the same grade level, they might be working on the same concept, but it isn't just lockstep. There are different teacher approaches to how to address those things. And it's nice to see teachers using their, individual skills to use their own strengths to implement curriculum, and they're not just doing lockstep curriculum. So it's good to see teachers being creative. And also, it was very encouraging to see classroom sizes. Maybe part of that's due to absenteeism still, but I think most of it is by policy. I think we have very small classrooms at kindergarten and first grade, which is good for student learning. And I think we'll probably see things like scores come up when kids can get the individual attention they need. So I'm more anxious to see our trends within the next year or two, recognizing that the COVID thing is something that just knocked everybody for a loop countrywide. But I think the strategies that are in place look promising. So, the social the other part, and I think I made a comment referencing that last meeting. 20 years ago, when I was working as a counselor, it was a struggle to get any kind of social emotional learning into the classrooms. And, the research told us we needed it, and teachers and parents were telling us we needed it, but it was hard to find a place for that. And now it's just built in. And it's encouraging to see teachers implementing social emotional curriculum and not relying totally on a specialist to do that they're getting trained and they're implementing, and they have a working knowledge of building those things into the classroom as well. And I think that has a lot to do with school climate, which again, if you make the connection, school climate looking good will improve attendance because kids will want to be there. So that was encouraging too.
Thank you, Norm, and thanks for sharing about your school visits. Anything else from other members of the board? Okay. Barb talked to you, I believe, this afternoon as you were coming in about your paperwork and travel and so forth for Washington State School Directors Annual Conference, which is coming up toward the end of this month. And then we all received an invitation from Nob Hill Elementary to attend their Veterans Assembly. I think it's Thursday. Wednesday. Okay. Do we have any board members who are interested or able to attend? We need this for quorum notice if we have to send one out. Okay. Okay, Raymond is considering. No, Norm, no. Graciela?
No, I'm not able to attend.
Yeah, and I'm unable to attend this year, but I know that it's always a grand assembly with, a lot of veterans there and a lot of celebration. So I guess we're not going to need a quorum notice, Barb. Okay, anything else from members of the board?
Yes. I just want to make a few more comments in terms of the presentation we just had. So, and this is just me. So this is not, I understand, the pandemic and the impact of the pandemic and so forth, but, I'm just feeling really disappointed in seeing the scores, the data. I really am. And I'm not sure I know it's not superintendent's fault. I know there's a lot of variables, but when you just look at the scores alone, I mean, it does look, I'm very disappointed just to see the scores like that. I know they're improving and so forth, but I just have to state that I'm real disappointed. It seems like, because I've been on the board for like going on 15 years, right? And it seems like whenever the scores dip or there's an inverse relationship or whatever with pandemic, the change in the state exams, we go from no childhood left behind to lead the way to, I mean, there's always changes, there's always challenges, there's always something that's kind of gets in the way of increasing scores. So I don't know when there's going to be a time where there's no pandemic or no change in state testing or standards and everything that we've been through. So I just feel, I have to say, mainly for the board, I do feel discouraged, disappointed with the scores, the data that we just were presented. And I am encouraged though, because we do have a plan in place. And so I'm looking forward to that. But I just wanted to mention that to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. My sense from my readings and talking to folks around the state and so forth, that we're not, this is not out of the norm for other school districts. They are suffering the same way that we are with the post-pandemic issues. And I think we're just all in the same boat. And it just means that we have to work a little harder, work a little smarter, and kind of corral these kids and make sure that they're present and learning every day. So, okay, anything else from board members? Okay, Dr. Green, you have a report for us tonight?
Absolutely. I given, and I thank all board members for their insight and their report. I feel a little bit impressed after the most recent share out, just to remind us all of our Yakima School District equity definition. That is the condition that would be achieved if one's membership no longer predicted in a statistical sense how one fares. That's the first part. And that really is the goal, that we want all of our students, regardless of subgroup, which is why I think Director Villanueva was calling out what are the subgroups. We certainly want to make sure that our subgroups are meeting standard. And those should not be a predictor of how people perform in the Yakima School District. So the second part of that definition is that equity is the outcome and not just access. So we have talked about some access opportunities. We're ahead of schedule when we're talking about dual language implementation, but that's not the outcome yet. We're waiting to see, and as we get towards that 2026 number, what those outcomes are, and it is a process. So I do totally understand frustration, and I can only imagine how frustrating it is for many of our educators as well to give their heart and soul and recognize that there are challenges across the board in multiple areas. And I do commend again, the Yakima School Board of Directors in the support that we're offering above and beyond the academics, but the commitment that we've had to health and wellness and how that's taking hold. And we're much, much more than the outcomes measured by state tests, but we do need to acknowledge that those are part of how we are measured. And we do have challenges, but those challenges don't define us. And we will continue to hold true to the threefold levers that we're focused on in teaching and learning. We believe in those. We're embracing those as kind of a hedgehog approach of digging in and making sure that we're going to focus in those areas. And we know that those will pay dividends. But all of this started really with that strategic plan that was supported by all of you, and that is something that without your guidance and leadership, we would not have that focus. So while it is frustrating, we do have some direction, and I'm happy about that. Moving to the update to share some great information with you, I will invite, unbeknownst to them, so please watch their reaction. I would love for Dr. Ellis and Mr. Mendez to please come up to the table up here with a microphone. They're like, what is going on? Yep. So the reason I'm having them come up is they do need to be commended in assembling some information. What's she doing? Oh, she pushed it over to him. All right. Both need to be commended for the effort that they put forth to reach out to our principal leadership and to provide some excellent information for us this evening. You will find in the in board docs on the superintendent update, there you go. There's a memorandum. It is from Dr. Ellis and from Hector Mendez, both of our executive directors of leadership and accountability. And these are notes for the board, providing a principal perspective on student progress post-COVID. So they've worked with all of our principals to break down for the board information on elementary themes, middle level themes, and high school themes. Followed by, and if you pan down, Barb, I think when it was uploaded, there was a front and back page. So there might be a page in between. Regrets for that. But there we have the well-known magic wand question that we ask as a board of what the principals would like to see given that magic wand. Let's go back up to the top if you would. So I am not trying to put either of these two leaders on the spot. I simply did want to acknowledge their efforts in creating this document for the board. And you're very capable of reviewing this document. And I recognize that you may like to take some time to see what some of those themes are. So we will not break this down step by step, but just recognizing that these are the challenges and celebrations in part of what elementary principals, middle level principals, and high school principals have seen with regard to coming back post-COVID. So when we're looking at numbers that were shared at the ends report, and the question came up, well, what are we kind of seeing out there? We hear about this COVID situation, but really, what does that mean? These are some of the bullet points that are confronting teachers on a daily basis, and I can give you some comments about what I saw when I came back at the beginning of last year. And I remember being very vividly being in Ridgeview and just listening to teachers in the faculty room talking to me about, and to each other about the skills that we're missing with kindergartners coming in, or the first graders, the first graders that didn't possess some of the skills that they had earlier. And we're moving through that continuum, but it doesn't mean that we are completely back to where we were previously. And this is an accounting of some of the information that was expressed both to Mr. Mendez and Dr. Ellis. If you wish to comment, fine. If not, that's perfectly fine as well. Okay. Hector?
I will comment. Thank you. Thank you for that time. And I appreciate the board expressing an interest in this. The struggles are real, that what our educators face, what we face. And when I say we, that includes all of us in this room. We all face these struggles. But the reality is every student in the Yakima School District in Washington State, they're born to be successful. And I want you to remember that. Yeah, it's important for us to know. And so when we have that mindset, the reality is our kids are coming to school with a lot of deficits. We know that. And we've got a great staff in the Yakima School District, great teachers, great leaders and principals, principal supervisors, and our leaders and superintendents of leading the work. But as you can read there, excuse me, if you can go up. Thank you. yeah, there's just a lot of things that are happening in schools, but I want us to be hopeful in terms of we're going to figure this out. The kids coming to school, there isn't, as you can read there's a little deficit going on with 3rd through 5th grade. They come to school in kinder and first, and all of a sudden they're not in school, and they come back as 4th and 5th graders. It's a struggle, but they're getting it, and so you're going to see this dip that we have now. And I appreciate Navarro, Board Member Navarro, what he was saying, that we're going to see a rise in our test scores, and I know that. I'm very confident in that. But it's going to take some time for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hector. I would also say, just to again highlight in there, that at the middle level, again, our middle level kiddos, we're definitely, that's an area of focus for us. Our kids, they were 6th graders when the pandemic started, and now they're, or 5th and 6th graders, now they're 8th graders. And so one of the areas of focus with our middle school principals is really building up that resilience of our kids. We're tracking data, and we know that towards the end of the day, our kids are getting really exhausted really fast. And so when you're exhausted, sometimes you're not your very best self. And then you add just the uniqueness of middle level. But what's really encouraging is at our high schools that we're seeing return to some normal high school behaviors. The social aspect of high school is really helping kids to re-engage into high school. I would say the focus as principal supervisors, supporting our principals and leading their PLTs, part of the 3 levers, has been really successful. But we also do recognize that we do have a high level of needs in our kids. And so the magic wand question that we asked our principals really came back to more wraparound services. If we could, just continue to love our kids even more. Basic needs, Maslow's hierarchy. We have a lot of families that just struggle with the basics of, shelter and clothing and food. And so when the school is wrapping around and supporting them, we know we're successful. We just know that we can't do that for all of our kids at the level that we'd want to, just basic necessities. So we asked them their magic wand question, and they were like, more wraparound services. And so we're like, we will pass that on to Superintendent Green and Governor Inslee.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the comments weren't necessary, but they're certainly appreciated. It was more of recognition for your efforts in leading our principal corps and making sure that information was accessible to our board. So thank you. In addition to this memo being shared with you, it was also information that I was able to share with Governor Inslee this last week. So I was part of a select group of leaders that were invited to meet with the governor. It was virtual, and Superintendent Reichdahl was there as well with his upper level leaders. It included about 8 to 10 of us in about an hour session. I was able to share the same information that I've shared with you this evening, so that was something that was made available to him. Interesting, the presentation when Superintendent Reichdahl was calling on us and kind of introducing the different regions, and he said, Superintendent Green, I'd love for you to share with Governor Inslee about there's some interesting things happening around some partnerships, and then he brought up the Arizona State University partnership. So that was something that I had not planned to share with the governor. And the nice thing, when we're talking about all the challenges that are out there, we really do need to celebrate some of these good things. And as I shared with the governor how we were providing access to students who typically did not have access, and providing these wraparound supports that are being described here for students that still want that advanced opportunity to have a degree prior to or when they leave high school, which is just a wonderful opportunity through the AA in high school program and the piloting of that program. He became very, very interested in that. And I have to believe that Superintendent Reichdahl intentionally directed the focus of that conversation in that area, because I believe that there is a move at the state level to provide more access rather than less for students trying to enter into the university level and have that degree leaving high school. I'm pleased to say that even though I try not to monopolize time when there are many other superintendents on the line, I was not able to stop the governor from asking question after question after question. So I do feel like Yakima was well represented, not only in the Arizona State pilot, but then also sharing at least one of our legislative priorities, which I was able to delve into the need for full funding in special education. So I was pleased to be able to talk directly to him about that need, which was restated by many of our colleagues, along with some of the other legislative priorities that I've seen in other districts or by WASDA or that have been listed in our own documents. So again, thank you for your work, Charlotte, Dr. Ellis, and Hector, Mr. Mendez, in providing this not only for us, but a document that we could share with the governor in all that is happening here in Yakima. Thank you.
Thank you for commenting, even though it was a surprise.
It was a very well thought out surprise. So I have a lot of faith and confidence in our two leaders that were able to come up here. That does conclude my presentation or my update today, unless you have any questions about the document or about any other conversation with Governor Inslee.
Any questions from board members?
I do have one, because you cited the middle level program of what you're doing with kids there, and what the theme that seems to be running through middle level is, at that level we're also dealing with a lot of kids struggling behaviorally and emotionally and with anxiety and so on. So one of the things I saw today in the elementary level is a program called Zones of Regulation, and which is teaching kids how to self-manage emotions and thoughts and behaviors. Is there anything that we're doing at the middle level appropriate to middle level kids along the same line that is teaching kids some self-management skills in those areas?
Yes, similar to what the zones of regulation that you witnessed today, we have that at the middle level as well. Also at the middle level, we have mentoring programs, as you're very familiar probably with the Washington one. We also have behavior specialists that are at the middle level who work with data-driven decisions and supporting kids in a variety of different ways at the different middle schools.
Any other questions from board members? Thank you both. Okay, next item on our agenda is the Yakima School District legislative priorities. You remember that we saw these last week and they needed a little bit of work, and the superintendent is bringing them back to us again today.
Yeah, so we're coming back not with one, but with two suggestions for you. So there is an elongated document that is up on the screen. You should have in front of you the two options that are available. My request of the board would be to make a decision on which of the two is the document that you would support moving forward. One is this, they're both the same as before, with the exception of the second legislative priority. So we have fully fund special education as the first and support K-12 capital facilities as the third, currently in this document. The two options for the board this evening are, we could add fixed pupil transportation, which we know transportation is not allocated appropriately currently. And as you can see in the explanation, there are many funding gaps that are occurring in that area over the last 5 years as that allocation dips below costs. So the request moving forward is to have the legislature provide additional funding to address excess costs to transport special passengers. However, it is time to comprehensively fix the pupil funding formula. And this is a consistent ask that I've seen not only in WASDA, but in WASA across the state. The other option is found in the investing in learning recovery. This was an option that was presented by one of the board members in reaching out to me. And I believe this is also, one of the WASA, may not be WASDA, but it's WASA, or is it WASDA? WASA. WASA priority. And this is recognizing the remote learning, the impact that it has had, and calling on the legislature to address beyond the one-time funding that we are currently receiving. So asking for those ongoing resources to expand accelerated learning opportunities such as tutoring, instructional time, and more student supports to address long-term impacts of the pandemic. These are the two that are up. Would just leave that with you for a decision on which you would like to support.
Okay. The board has had an opportunity to review these, and I would entertain any discussion prior to a decision for which one of the two that we would like to support.
I'm curious to hear from our administrative staff, if you were to prioritize between those two, pupil transportation or learning recovery, how would you prioritize those? People on the front lines.
Oh, ouch. Okay. So I think one of the things that I always am trying to consider is what is really feasible for the legislature to actually fund. And so when I bring things to you, I try to bring things that I think have more of a chance of gaining some traction. So I don't know if I'm going to be much help to you in this because I'm going to give you two different answers. So, but I'm telling you ahead of time, I think if I really truly believed that there was a long-term commitment in investing in learning recovery, then absolutely, if we're going to extend that beyond the one-time allocation, then wholeheartedly would support that. I do think that when you're talking about fixing pupil transportation, that does have the ears of legislators currently. That has been something that I believe lobbyists and others have promoted quite well. And I do think that that has more of an opportunity to be something that is enticing for legislators to support. So there are my two answers. Just depends on if we were actually to get them to commit to whatever our priorities are over all the other ones that are out there within their own legislative districts.
Okay.
Well, it seems there are two big challenges in pupil transportation, and one is shortages of personnel to drive the buses, and that's state and nationwide issue. The other one is fuel costs. I think fuel costs, they kind of go up and down, but I suspect in the long term, they're not going to go down a whole bunch. And so that's going to be a huge budget consideration for districts. So I don't know if the legislative answer to that is going to address that, fuel costs and things like that. I would assume it might, but.
Okay, thank you, Norm.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or comments from board members? Graciela, do you have it?
I do. Certainly agree that transportation is an important topic and something that needs to be addressed. My thought goes to considering the data that we just saw in the global end statement presentation and the memo that Superintendent Green shared with us around the number of really major challenges that our students are experiencing. I think I would suggest that we focus on investing in learning recovery. I think that is probably going to be something that our students are going to struggle with for a long time. I think we need to do everything we can to try to provide additional resources so that our students can be successful, like we know they can be.
Thank you, Graciela. Other thoughts or comments?
Yes, I would support the one that has a greater impact on student learning. So that would then mean the recovery, invest in learning recovery. So it makes sense since, as board member Villanueva just referenced, that ends report, right? So it just seems like a good priority to focus on in terms of improving those the student performance.
Do you have any comment, Ryan?
Well, I recall you telling me I had 1 year to say that I was new. and to use that as an excuse.
Yeah, but you're running out of time
It
pretty
expires
quickly.
at the end of this month. So this may be my last chance to do this, but this is my first experience going through these legislative priorities, and both obviously are important and serious issues that should be brought before the legislature. I really feel like the investing in learning recovery priority addresses parent concerns and the reality of the situation that we're in because of our extended situation with COVID. I printed off the last number of years worth of priorities that were in that email that came out and went through. And I know a lot of these stay the same or are tweaked a little bit year to year. And I feel like this is one of those opportunities where we have the chance to insert something that's very pertinent and timely. And as improvements are made in academic progress over the next year, it may not be as important. It may be something that the other priorities are able to replace down the road. But it certainly seems like it's timely and would be my preference. So, thank you.
Okay. I guess I could live with either one. And just to let you know, in conversations that I've had at the legislative level, if we choose to go with the learning resources priority, I'm fairly certain that the first thing that legislators will bring up is, oh, but you got a whole pile of money from the federal government through the ESSER funding. And not only did you get it once, but you got it 3 times. And I know that I'm fairly certain that will be the first comment that comes out of their mouths, because I've heard it when going to legislators and say, we need more funding or whatever the funding request is. Their first thought is to say, but you got a lot of federal money and you should be using that instead of coming to us and asking for more. But we have some data to show that additional money is needed for student learning. So the priority regarding pupil transportation, while it hits us to some degree, those small districts that travel a very long way every single day to transport students, it hits them a whole lot harder than it does us. I think of East Valley that goes all the way out to the Sunnyside line, and Natchez that goes all the way up to the top of the pass. With the cost of fuel and the lack of drivers, those are really big challenges for smaller districts that don't have the budget capacity that we do. So I guess I just wanted to throw that out there and would entertain a motion for one of these two. Let's call the priorities with the pupil transportation funding priority option A, and the other one with the learning resources option B. And I would entertain a motion.
I'd move that we adopt priorities with option B, investing in learning recovery.
Moved by Ryan, seconded by Roland. Is there any discussion?
I have a clarification.
My own.
Since this item is not listed as an item under the approval section, does that create any challenges with making a motion to approve when it wasn't an item on the agenda for approval?
I don't think that it does. The superintendent we can just do it by consensus if that's a concern. But the superintendent has asked for approval of this. We've seen it. This will be this twice now. So I don't know that that should be an issue.
Okay, I don't necessarily know those exact rules, but just wanted to put that question out there, but if you're comfortable.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
When you brought up legislators asking about state funding or federal funding, right, I think that's a valid question. I know the district did receive a significant amount of money. So, but I believe that the superintendent included in the statement here that it was a one-time funding. So I can understand, putting into place mental health and health resources, whatever, the center, hiring new staff and so forth. So I think that the monies that we did get was used to install or to set up those type of services within the district. And going forward, we would need continued funding to support those type of services if we're seeing that this is going to be a long-term impact of COVID or the pandemic. So I do see the validity of those questions, questioning the budget and the extra monies, but there's still a need.
I'm not denying that there's not a need. But that's my experience is that that's the first question that they ask. And we just need to be prepared for that. Okay, any other discussion? All right. Barb, could you call the roll? It's been moved and seconded to adopt option B, which is the one that contains the priority to invest in learning recovery.
Yes.
Can you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We've reached the first opportunity for comments from the public. Nobody has signed up, so we will move that to, we'll move shortly to the second opportunity, which is at the end of the meeting. Then we've got a list of 3 approvals. The first approval is for the Carl D. Perkins grant application and 4-year strategic plan for the Yakima Valley Technical Skills Center for the 2022 to 23 school year.
Thank you, Board President Rice, members of the board. I have what is our annual request for approval. This is required as part of the Perkins grant application process. And along with that, you have the 4-year strategic plan in the board packet as well. The first one is related specifically to our district. And then you're going to hear also a similar program and plan for YB Tech. We have to do those separately. So the first one again is seeking approval from the board for the Carl D. Perkins grant application and the 4-year strategic plan for YSD's career and technical education programs for this school year. Happy to answer questions.
Any questions or comments from board members? Okay. I would entertain a motion. The board has been asked to grant approval of the Carl D. Perkins grant application and the 4-year strategic plan for the district career and technical education strategic plan.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Raymond, seconded by Norm. Is there any discussion? Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, the second action item is approval of the 4-year strategic plan for the Skills Center, correct?
Correct. I apologize. I read them in the reverse order from what they are on the agenda. So this time I am seeking what is listed as number 1 under section D, approvals in the agenda. Again, this is that the Board of Directors grants approval of the Perkins grant application and the 4-year strategic plan for Yakima Valley Technical Skills Center, also known as YV Tech. Again, this is an annual request, and this is for the 22-23 school year.
Okay. I would entertain a motion for approval of the Carl D. Perkins grant application as it relates to the 4-year strategic plan for YV Tech.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Norm, seconded by Raymond. Is there any discussion? Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. And the last approval is for, the board is being requested to grant approval in the form package 217 that outlines the highly capable plan for the 22-23 school year.
This is not dissimilar. This is another grant that happens annually, and each year we bring it to you for approval. That's a required condition of being able to receive the grant from the state. So in this case, we're seeking approval of Form Package 217 in the iGrant system. It outlines our highly capable plan for the 22-23 school year. And you can see under the background information that this is funding really to support particularly training for teachers in how to successfully recruit and serve our highly capable students. You can also see we currently have 390 identified students in grades 3 through 12. This particular program transitioned leadership twice in the last year. So currently Director Arnie Lewis is overseeing the program. And so they have been developing a plan for moving forward. Also earlier, we talked about induction, mentoring, and coaching. And so we're really looking at the key strategies for highly capable learners and embedding that into our 3-year training plan for new teachers as they come on board in Yakima. Happy to answer any questions.
I would entertain a motion for approval of the iGrant Form Package 217 for the highly capable grant application for the 2022-23 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ryan, seconded by Norm. Is there any discussion? Okay, Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, we've reached the second opportunity for comments from the public. Nobody's signed in that little bit of time. So we will move on. We have policy governance monitoring reports for policy 1000.2.7. No. Can I read that? 2.3, financial conditions and activities. You are presenting in Jake's absence.
Yeah,
correct?
Jake was unexpectedly unable to attend today. So this is a monitoring report that I do believe would be better delivered by Jake in finance. So we could proceed without him, but I would recommend pushing it 1 week if we could.
At the business meeting, you want it presented at the
I
business
guess 2
meeting?
weeks.
And that would be then at the end of the month when we're at Davis. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there objection to moving this monitoring report to the 27th, 8th? 28th.
Just the other option is it is up to date. It is ready. We could present this. If there are no questions, then I think we're good to go. However, it just depends on any questions that you might have around the financial area. I would feel more comfortable having him address those. Comfortable?
comfortable addressing it today?
Okay.
Okay.
I then, if that's okay with the board, I would ask Dr. Darling to please take over.
I guess you're it.
I'm it. And this is quite a simple presentation. Becky did a great job and we're doing well financially. And we're not going to give Jake any credit, especially since he's not here. So the primary focus of this monitoring report is based a lot on the district's remaining fund balance and whether we remain stable at or above the 5% fund balance. As you can see, our CFO found that we are in compliance in every one of the policy statements, and a lot of them had to do with justification of being at or above the 5% ending fund balance. And so because of the checks and balances that are in place from our CFO, Becky, and continuing on with Jake, he's assured us that the superintendent is guiding the district in a financially stable and appropriate manner.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Darling. Are there any questions? Okay. That one will be, all three of these will be sent out to the board in the form of a Survey Monkey tomorrow and to be returned by the 10th. Is that right, Barb? 8th. No. What does this say? To be returned by the 18th for review on our meeting on the 28th. Okay. So the next policy is 1000.2.6, public access to facilities. Anthony.
Thank you, President Rice. This policy is basically making our facilities available to the public when capable. During COVID, we had to shut down our indoor facilities, although we did continue to allow the use of our outdoor facilities. As of April of 2022, indoor facilities then became reopened, and we are in compliance.
Okay. Are there any questions for Anthony? Okay. This one will go into the survey machine and we'll get those tomorrow to be returned by the 18th. And the last one is policy 1000.2.7, emergency superintendent succession, sorry. Anthony.
So the emergency superintendent succession plan has been fondly called in case superintendent gets hit by a bus policy. Do you remember that from a few years ago?
Yeah.
And
For succession, actually. I don't want him to get hit by a bus.
I'm sorry, my staff hears me say that all the time. Like, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, could you take over and what would you do? And so I think we were just joking with that and it just kind of stuck. So I'll drop that this next year. We won't have that. This policy outlines a succession plan. We have a system where the deputy may take over. We have where the assistants and the deputy can get together and temporarily select a replacement until the board makes its final decision. So there are checks and balances that are in place. With that, we are in compliance. It's very simple, straightforward, and I think we're good to go.
Thank you, Anthony. Are there any questions for Anthony? Okay. All right, so this one will go into the survey machine as well. We'll get that tomorrow and to be returned by the 18th. We reached the end of our regular agenda. Dr. Green, do we have a need for executive session?
We do not.
Okay. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
I'd just like to move backward and ask one question about the highly capable program plan.
Sure.
At some point, it made no difference in terms of voting for this package, but at some point I'd like to to hear a report out on our process for identifying students for highly capable, how we do that. And I'd like to see a report on the ethnic makeup of our highly capable. Does it reflect the ethnic makeup of the district, or is it widely skewed, or kind of how does that look in our district?
Is
You're
highly-
scheduled for a report on the highly capable program as part of your 3-year rotation. So it is later this school year. You'll receive all that information in a board report.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Norm. Anything else? Okay, nothing else for the good of the order. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Have a great evening. Drive safely.